Ladies and gentlemen, fellow parliamentarians, my name is Líneik Anna Sævarsdóttir. I have been a member of the Parliament for the Progressive Party since 2013. I was one of the members from Iceland that attended the WIP conference in Brussels last fall, and I was very impressed and inspired with that meeting. I also learned that we here in Iceland have a great responsibility, that is we have to keep on working on closing the gender gap. I will be the moderator during the closing session, which theme is, what have we learned during these 2 days, and can Iceland be exported? First to take the floor in the closing session is the Minister of Industry and Commerce, Ragnheiður Elín Árnadóttir. She has been a member of Alþingi since 2007, representing the Independence Party. From 1995 to 1998, she worked for the Promote Iceland project, both in Reykjavík and New York. And from 1998 to 2007, she was a political advisor to a minister. Ragnheiður Elín, the floor is yours.
Chairman, dear friends, I feel like I am allowed to call you friends after these past couple of days. I would like to, as others have done here, thank Silvana particularly for organizing this, for getting this organization going. And I think we are all in agreement that this trip has been very valuable. And I think this organization and this networking that we are doing now is going to be valuable to all of us. And I hope that we can build on this and take further steps together in the future. I have the task of being in the last panel. And I was telling someone here in the coffee break that everything that I was going to say has been said many times. So I would like to maybe change this and try to call this a summary instead of the lessons learned. But that is sort of the same thing. The question, can Iceland be exported? It's a huge question, and it's a question that makes me kind of shy. You know, Iceland, best in the world. As you have heard, we are not of the opinion that we are there yet. We feel that we can do so much better. We feel that there are glass ceilings. We feel that we still have obstacles that we need to overcome. But we also have to appreciate and accept and be proud of the fact that we are at the top of the list when it comes to gender equality. And we have to accept the responsibility that comes with it. And I feel the responsibility, and by traveling with you to the 4 companies that we have visited for the last couple of days, I feel the responsibility because I hear it in your questions, I hear it in the things that you are concerned about, that we have come further. And we have to then take the responsibility and be able to share with you the lessons learned and how we can help you to get where we are, maybe not exactly the same way, as was described by our Kenyan colleagues. Maybe not everything can be copied. And of course, this is partly culture, and this is partly something that we can do. But there are lessons that we can take cross-border, and there are lessons, if I would like to summarize, that we can take away how we did it. We were really proud of being rewarded the Women in Parliament Awards. We should have brought the trophies. We can do that tonight. bring them tonight. We were very proud, and when Silvana and I had that conversation, which ultimately turned into this trip, that was right after the award, and we were, of course you can come to Iceland, of course, study trip, yes, of course. And I'm so glad that we had that conversation, because I think both we and I hope you learned from this. If we try to think of the lessons learned and how we got there, I have to admit that I am a bit like Hannah Birna's daughters. I was trying to think, when did I realize that I was different from the guys, or did I ever realize that I didn't have, or think that I didn't have the same opportunities? And I have to admit, I never did. So I am born in 1967. I grew up with the notion that I could be and do whatever I wanted if I put my mind to it. And I don't think I have ever, at any point in time, doubted that I could. And so I think that is something that is ingrained in our culture. And I don't know if that can be exported, but I hope so. Because that is a very good feeling. When you look back and think, there's not an automatic obstacle, I can't do this because I'm a woman. And as a matter of fact, because Vigdís Finnbogadóttir, President Vigdís, has been mentioned, and she is one of the role models, one of the milestones in our development. I remember someone asking me, my nephew, he was watching her on television, and this was about the time when she was deciding not to stand again. And there was some discussion about who would run for president, and a male name came up. And he looked at me really surprised and said, "Can men be president?" So the role model, if we take the lessons learned, the role model is so important. We have ours, and they have all been mentioned, but let me mention them again. President Vigdís, Jóhanna Sigurðardóttir, Ingibjörg H. Bjarnason, the first woman to be elected in parliament, Ingibjörg Sólrún Gísladóttir, mayor, Hanna Birna Kristjánsdóttir, mayor, Katrín Jakobsdóttir, a chairman of a political party, the traditional political parties. We have so many role models. And this is not only a political thing. This is also, as we have seen, the wonderful role models that we have in business. We took you to 4 different companies, 4 different industries, 4 different women that you met. And like we have been discussing during the trips, there was a thread. There was a red thread in these visits. You could see how it matters that the CEO is a woman. And you could see how it matters to the company culture to lead by example. Rannveig Rist works from 8 to 4. That is something that we in politics need to change. She came into that company and said, from 4, I have to pick up my kids. I need to stay with my family. That's a time where I don't book any meetings. When she came to the company, there were meetings at 5, at 6, on the weekends. But no, and I thought it was great that she said that she installed the fire and the burglar alarm, so it would be really problematic to leave the premises after 6. This is leading by example. These are the role models. Also, I agree with Katrín Júlíusdóttir, who spoke in the last session. She has 4 boys. I have 2 boys. We have to teach them. We have to, and that's our responsibility. It's not just be role models for our daughters. It has to be a role model for our sons as well. To teach them that this is the way it is. That they shouldn't question. And I'm worried as a mother of boys, if we are going with the pendulum all the way to the other direction, and we are seeing more problems for boys in school. We just need to, the pendulum has to sort of balance and get this whole thing together. Another another role model or another hero that was mentioned yesterday by the gentleman from the UNDP in Norway, Malala's father. I had never thought of that. Of course, he is a great part of her inspiring story, as was described. I thought that was a very important point. That brings me to culture. As we have demonstrated and has been said here during these last couple of days, we have a strong culture, or a culture of strong women. The sagas tell us about women who were deciding factors in battles and feuds between the heroes of our ancient sagas. So this is in our culture. I was reading, I don't know if you have read the newest Economist. I urge you to do that, because there's an article about Japan. It's a briefing, Japanese women and work, holding back the nation. And here's a picture of a chain and ball. This is an amazing article, and I had not realized this. And I wish that we had a representative from Japan. We should work on that. Maybe we do in the organization, though. Because it says here that despite the fact that Japanese women have outstanding abilities, they perform well in school, they, of course, are just as smart as anyone, wherever. There is absolutely no progress in narrowing the gender gap in Japan. And when Japanese women have children, they tend to go out of the workplace for 10 years or more, only to return having the 10-year younger boys, men, having surpassed them. Everything that they learned has been outdated, and they have no chance of advancing to the point where they should be. And that's the culture. It is seen as natural that raising children is the woman's work. And the tax system and everything in the society encourages this. But there may be chance for the Japanese women because, as is well described in this article, the president is, and his party, Shinzo Abe, they have realized this. And this is an economic threat to Japan because the workforce is too small. They thought that keeping the women at home so they could breed and have kids would produce more workers. But that's not working this way, because the women who want to work, they're not having the children. So now there may be hope, because it has become an economic necessity to change this. And let's hope that program that is described in this article will help Japanese women. Not that I'm not going to interfere if they don't want to work. That's fine. But give them the choice. Give them the surroundings. Give them the setting that we all enjoy. Lessons learned. As we've heard, milestones are very important. You've heard about our milestones. The women's walkout in 1975. A huge, independent, single event that changed our history. The Women's Alliance, the party, that was a huge difference that inspired change in other parties. Vigdís, can men be presidents? She was president for 16 years, and I can't wait for you to meet her tonight, because she's truly an inspiration at the age almost of 85. She is truly an inspiration to all of us, and always will be. And then there is the maternity leave that has also been discussed. I was fortunate enough to have a part in that, setting that legislation. I was the political advisor to the Minister of Finance at the time, and I was in a small task force that wrote the bill. And we did it in such a way, at the time, there had been so much discussion about this, and there was a big push to make a change. but there had been committees after committees after committees. And at the Ministry of Finance, we had the situation that public workers had this system. Public fathers had 2 weeks. Public mothers, 6 months. Private market had fathers and mothers had 6 months. And there was a Supreme Court ruling. Everything was stuck. We couldn't make any changes. So we decided we'll just detangle the whole thing and make a new system. So what we did was to take all of the ideas, all of the from all of the parties, the agendas, from the Workers' Association, from the Employers' Association, and we wrote a bill that we thought would best satisfy all the different views. The main objectives being to increase the time that a newborn has with its parents, not its mother, not its father, with its parents. And it was also a thing to increase gender equality. That was one of the objectives. That's why we had in place that you have to have, before mothers usually took 6 months. So we felt we couldn't go lower than that because then we would be making a lot of people unhappy. So it was 3 months for the mother, 3 months for the father, and 3 months that they could divide. And if the father didn't take it, or if the father didn't take his part, nobody could use it. So we didn't use it to lengthen the mother's maternity leave, but we used it to make it, as has been described so well, the mother and the father, an equal threat to the employer. And I think this is one of our cornerstone milestones that we truly can export. And I hope, and you may need to do other changes before in Kenya, but bear this in mind, because this is really not only for women's rights, but it's just also a family thing. Fathers it's good for children to be with their fathers. My husband, because I have a job that is not, I can't say I'm only going to work from 8 to 4, unfortunately, and that's something that we need to do in politics as our next task. But my husband is a wonderful father, and he just, we didn't even have to negotiate it. This is just something that happens. I am not there, then he is there. And I'm very fortunate, maybe, or am I? He's very fortunate that he has me. You know, this is just something that works for us. But then finally, what we can do, what we have yet to do here, is exactly this: change the rules of the game. Like Hanna Birna said, we shouldn't take it for granted that this is the way it's supposed to be. Why do all meetings have to be after 5? Why do all meetings have to be on the weekends? I thought it was good when Rannveig said yesterday, the workers are not going to come to visit you in the old folks home. Your family is. Our voters, they're not going to check up on us at the retirement home, but our family hopefully is. So this is just something that we need to do, and we've been talking about this for far too long. This parliament is a very bad example of how our work is organized, and we can do so much better. There are so many evenings and nights that you know, with better organization and with the will, with the political will, we can change it. And this is not only in politics. This is also in the business community. But in politics, I think this is the one of the reasons for why women don't stay in politics. At the end of the day, we probably all think as Rannveig does. Okay, it's just a question of prioritizing your life. We only have one life, or as far as we know. How are you going to make the best use of your time? What is more valuable? And that may be more the feminine side of us, that we look at our kids and say, yeah, they are more precious. And that's why women don't stay in politics. We need to change the rules of the game. Katrin Júlíusdóttir, who was here, she was elected to parliament in 2003. That's only 11 years ago. She is the woman now, after Jóhanna Sigurðardóttir and some others left the parliament in the last election, she is the longest serving woman currently in parliament. I was elected 2007 and I'm becoming one of the old ones. Experience gives power, someone said here, so we have to make sure that we create the environment that makes us want to stay and that gives us the opportunity to stay. Finally, I could stand here all day. Finally, I just want to thank you once again. This has been truly a pleasure. I hope that we can do this again soon. Thank you, Silvana. Thank you all for coming here from such faraway places, and I look very much forward to the discussion and the reception tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Katrín Jakobsdóttir, who has been a member of Parliament since 2007 and the Minister of Education, Science and Culture 2009 until 2013, and the Minister for Nordic Cooperation during the same period. She is the chairwoman of the Left Green movement from 1999 till 2007. She worked in the publishing and broadcasting sector and was a teacher at the University of Iceland. The floor is yours.
I'm very happy to be here with you at the end of this conference. I'm just going to mention 3 points because, of course, there are lessons to be learned from Iceland, but there are also lessons that we need to learn yet. And I always find it helpful to quote John Stuart Mill, who said that gender equality was maybe the equality that had the deepest roots within ourselves, because it affects us all in one way or other. And for me, gender equality is always a work in progress, if you can say that, because we move forward, but we can also move backwards. And I think the first thing I would like to mention is the media. In Iceland, actually, when you look at the media, we have a very similar situation as in other European countries. That is, what people do you see in the media? You see men, around 70%, up to 75% of the faces you see are male faces. From 20 to maybe 25% are female faces. And the odd thing is that the great majority of those female faces are women under 35 years of age. So basically, I'm past my prime, you know, my best before date has passed. And that is something that we need to be really worried about. Why don't we see any older women, for example, reading the news, telling us news? This is something that I find very worrying, because it's the media that shapes really the opinions of those who are watching the greater public. And there we haven't really moved on. Those who are in control of the media here in Iceland, whether it's the news or the media at all, it's men. And now actually the national radio has put forward a new policy saying that they are going to increase gender equality. But for some reason or other, it's a bit like the politics that Ragnheiður Elín was mentioning, that women leave politics earlier than men. It's the same with the media, that women leave the media before the men do. It's not a family-friendly workplace, and it really matters, because I used to work in media, and I bet you have all heard it from males working in the media. They say it's so difficult to get women, you know, on interviews. They always say, a famous moderator here in Iceland said, you know, they're always, you know, baking some cakes for birthdays on Sundays when I have a show, so I don't have any women, I just have men. It's a bad excuse, because I worked in media, and I always somehow managed to get women to attend my show when I was having a show. And that's why it's so important for women to work in media, because that's, as I said before, it shapes the opinions of people. And if you only see men holding powerful places, you get to grow up and think about, oh, they must really rule the world. In politics, we have actually achieved a very great success. And one of the things that we have done in Iceland, and that's a very important thing, because I think, for example, I know you've been talking a lot about the legislation about women entering the boards of companies. and that has been a really interesting progress. But when it comes to politics, the political parties themselves have really taken up this discussion. I think this movement that we see in Icelandic politics, where women have been gaining weight, really is coming from the grassroots. And for some reason or other, we have seen great successes there. I come from a party that actually says that when we run for parliament and when we run for local communities, we should always try to favor the women because we're a feminist party. And we say it's not really only the issue of this party, but we have to look at the political scene as a whole. You have heard about the Women's Party that we had here, and that of course made a huge difference, because before they entered there were only 3 women in parliament, and when they came on the scene, a lot of people said, most of the men, oh, what a drastic measure, and of course we don't need a party that's all female, you know, that's just crazy. Things will happen very gradually. But they hadn't happened very gradually. You know, this was in the early 80s. And then they started to happen, because when we had an all-female party, all the other parties said, okay, we need to look into our affairs and do something about this. So media, that's something where Iceland needs to improve itself. In politics, we have done quite a good job, but you know, it's never over. You always have to be on your, well, I think you always have to be alert. And that's when, and why does it matter to have women in politics? Well, Ragnheiður Ellen was talking about the maternity and parental leave, and that was a very important milestone. I can mention another, which is really the great progress that was made in kindergartens in the early 90s. When I was a kid, I'm 38 years old, I went to a kindergarten for a half day, and I actually got a place in kindergarten when I was maybe 3.5 years old. So somebody had to take care of me until I was 3.5 years old. And then we had parental leave for, I think it was just 6 weeks in that time. So these are very important factors. It's the parental leave and the kindergartens. I myself, because everybody have been so personal, I can tell you too that I have 3 sons. The last one I had as a minister. That was something very interesting, because a minister never had been pregnant before. So it actually came on the 6 o'clock news. Okay, she's pregnant. And I started getting phone calls, are you leaving politics? And I was really surprised. This is Iceland. No, of course I'm not leaving politics. But since a minister hadn't been pregnant before, I had to go to a lawyer and see how I'm going to do this. You know, am I going to leave the government and enter it again? And, you know, how are we going to do this? So we did it in a way that I had my son. I went on a leave for 5 months, actually. I think it was 5 months. And while I was away, another minister attended my ministry in my place. And she was absolutely fabulous, because she took over my duties as well. And that's a very difficult thing. Luckily, I had the kid in the summer, so it was a little bit easier. But, and then my husband took over and took his 4 months then. And somehow we managed it. And then we have these great kindergartens, and as I say usually, if it was only me really bringing up my children, they would be terrible. But luckily we have kindergartens, so that's a very important factor. And I think equality will never be obtained unless the men are taking equal part in the responsibilities at home. It's really that's where it all begins. You can have your job, but if you always have to work 200%, being in your office, in your politics, and then you have to take care of everything at home and taking all the decisions, should the kids go to sports or do this or that, then it will never work out. So that's why they need to take responsibility. And it's still not there, even though we've had this legislation since 2000, right? We're still dealing with it, that when it comes to the kids growing up, it's still the mothers that are taking most of the decisions, coming to parental meetings, taking, you know, the time off from work, coming to parental meetings and doing the stuff, you know, baking the cakes, and that needs to be done. So we're not there yet, even though we have made great progress. The last factor I would like to mention is education, because I was a Minister of Education, Culture and Science, and actually we've had in our laws on the primary school, we've had a line saying that the school should educate children on gender equality since 1976. That's the year when I was born. I never learned anything about gender equality in my school, and actually it didn't go into a curriculum until 2011 when I was a minister. And I think this is something really important, because this is where change happens. The educational system really affects the way we think. We learn about how we really build a society, and if a gender equality is part of it, how we build a society, and you learn about it in school, and you raise your boys and girls in thinking about that blue and pink aren't necessarily the colors for the genders, that it isn't that, why do we think some things are feminine and others are masculine? Why do people go very awkward when a little boy dresses up in a pink dress and says, I'm a girl? Why is that awkward? And why do we find that more awkward than when a girl pretends that she's a boy? So many questions that we need to wonder about and think about, because it's all, as Mill said in the early days, it's so deep-rooted within ourselves because it's part of our identity. We all grow up knowing that we're a boy and a girl. We can know that we can't do anything, even though we're a girl or a boy. But we are still very conscious about that we are. And we need to understand really how society has built up boxes for ourselves to fit in. And we need to be a little bit creative when we think about these boxes. And that's why it's so important to teach about gender equality, teach about gender, and not teach about it, but making the boys and girls think why. Why? I know my time is out, so thank you so much. Very happy to have met you here, and equality for all.
Thank you. The third speaker is Jakob Kopperud, who is a senior international affairs officer at the World Bank Group, where he is responsible for the World Bank's relations with the Nordic countries and the head of parliamentary relations. As such, he leads the World Bank parliamentary engagement, notably relations with global parliamentary networks and organizations. Jakob.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to be brief. It's pretty close to the end of the day. Just wanted to thank you for inviting me. Thanks, Ivana, and the women in Parliament for inviting me. Also very conscious of being one of the few men speaking, so I'll be extra brief because of that. My UNDP colleague spoke of women pilots yesterday. So my grandfather was a pilot, so I'm a little bit behind in my sort of power of association there, but I'm the lucky father of 4 daughters, and I obviously want them to have the same opportunities as boys, and growing up and to be in full control over their own lives and over their own bodies and have all the same opportunities as the boys. The World Bank last year formulated 2 overarching goals for its work: end extreme poverty by 2030 and shared prosperity, which means the focus on the 40 poorest percentage of the population in each country we engage in. And obviously we can't reach any of these goals without helping countries bring about gender equality. In other words, we have to make them more ready to import the Icelandic model, if you like. I've been asked to talk about a recent report called Gender at Work that some of my colleagues in the World Bank have done. And when we talk about gender equality in the world of work, what do we mean by equality? It's not our position that all women should have the same jobs as men, nor that all women should be in the labor force. Gender equality in the world of work does not mean that women and men should make the same choices, but that they should have an equal range of choices available to them and equal capabilities to act on those choices. Well, we use ILO's work definition, recognizing the broad range of economic activities, paid, unpaid, formal, informal, in which women and men participate. Gender gaps in the world of work have many forms, and they're persistent. Women and men, as we've been talking about over the last few days, they sort into different sectors, different occupations, different types of firms, and women consistently earn less than men. And women's labor force participation globally is falling. It was 57% in 1990, and it's 55% today. The report highlights lots of evidence for the empowerment case for women themselves, but also the business case for firms and the development case for countries. And each of these are important. I'm going to use an example from Latin America. Women's labor force participation in the region rose by more than a third over the decade up to 2010, in sharp contrast with the global trend. World Bank colleagues have estimated that extreme poverty in the region would have been 30% higher, and average income inequality would have been 28% higher were it not for women's increased incomes in Latin America. In other words, gender equality in the world of work is not a luxury in the development process, it's integral to reducing poverty and reaching the 40 poorest percent. So it's how we reduce poverty, basically. Labor force participation, however, is but one dimension of gender inequality in the world of work. In some of the world's poorest countries, like Rwanda or Tanzania, 9 out of 10 women participate in the labor force. But this doesn't mean that they are employed in good jobs, or that they're running profitable enterprises, or that they're earning as much as their male counterparts. Also, education is really important, but it does not guarantee gender equality. We see that in the Middle East and North Africa, significant gains in women's health and education happen alongside a stagnation in women's economic opportunities. Neither does economic growth guarantee gender equality. At the same levels of income, we see huge variations in gender gaps in economic opportunities. Pakistan and Lesotho have very similar per capita GDP, but Pakistan does much worse on the measure of equality of economic opportunities calculated by the World Economic Forum. Iceland has the same GDP as Kuwait. Iceland ranks number 1, Kuwait number 116 on WEF's economic gender gap report. So I think this is pretty good proof that the trickle-down economy doesn't really work. The report, I'm not going to go into much length in the report, but it also goes on to describe some of the social norms, the legal barriers, the difference in access to finance, and the many multiple constraints that women meet. So the question we're trying to ask ourselves then, if the development case and the economic case for gender equality is so strong, why do these gaps persist, and what can we do about it? Obviously, overcoming gender inequality involves understanding the local specificities, pulling together and analyzing all the data, and developing bold, coordinated actions to address the overlapping constraints. And you can't just access one at a time, but you have to access many. Governments obviously can play a critical role in leveling the playing field for women's economic opportunities, and we also advise taking a life cycle approach. So it can be about kindergarten, but it can also be about having access to health at the later stage in life. Old people's homes, for instance, will have a huge impact also on women and men going forward. So reforming legal differences, improving public service delivery to meet gender-specific needs are places to start. And as legislators, you obviously have a strong role to play here. Also, legislation around the private sector. Private sector is the largest source of jobs, and it's essential to engage the private sector for equality in the world of work. The World Bank is a data-driven institution, and basically what we are trying to do is that we're trying to put as much evidence on the table as possible to demonstrate that gender equality is important for a number of reasons. And as I said, that it's not a luxury, but it's necessary to push development forward. We recently put all our gender-related impact evaluations that we've done since 2000 online in a database that is accessible freely to all. It's called Engender Impact. So please go and use those as much as you like. For those of you that are coming from a developing country, I would encourage you to pull together your group of female colleagues in Parliament and then go and ask for a meeting with the World Bank country director or country manager. Sit down with us and figure out how we can work together and strengthen the gender dimensions of the work that the World Bank is supporting in your countries. And should any of you have any problems getting access, you just have to call me. Okay? Exactly. And finally, let me just quote our chief economist, Kaushik Basu. He's an Indian national. And being an economist, of course, he does agree with the fact that gender equality is good economics. But he also says that even if it wasn't, it's morally right and we should go for it. Even if it's a cost, we should work towards gender equality. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Last but not least, Frances Rosenbluth will be the last speaker in the closing session. She is a Damon Wells Professor of Political Science at Yale University. She has published numerous books and articles, and a part of her research focuses on the politics of gender inequality. She is a member of the American Academy of Arts and Science. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm racing with the clock, but I think it's probably worth taking 30 seconds to thank again Silvana and her colleagues for making this event possible. It's a great experiment in building networks among women politicians. So thank you very much. And the hosts who've dovetailed so beautifully in hosting this here. Just to summarize for all of us why it matters that women still do not have parity in the political realm. It matters for the women themselves who would be career politicians, that they face barriers that their male colleagues don't face. But because representation is so crucial a part of democracy, it's also a problem that the societies in which these legislatures function, play this vital role, that we are robbing ourselves of such an important talent pool. And we are robbing ourselves of the voices of people, the women who have a different vision, who understand what society needs, including childcare and elder care and so on. Voices that would not be there were women not to be there. And it's also a problem that we simply are missing out on some of the smartest minds who could help move society forward. So obviously it's a problem. But let me direct you to a striking fact. Women are underrepresented on average around the world, but there's enormous variation. And if you look at that variation, it doesn't correlate perfectly with the level of gender stereotyping. Gender stereotyping, the pink-blue, exists everywhere. It's a barrier everywhere. But it's also the case that in some countries where women do rise to levels of authority in the economic realm as business managers, the female political representation is very low. In other words, these things are not correlated very well. What does that tell us? It tells us that gender stereotyping is working itself in different ways depending on the local political institutions as well. It's very important for us to understand how local, national, regional, municipal political institutions create new barriers at every level for female advancement in the political sphere. And I would like to hear from those of you who have experience about two aspects of this in particular. One is, and this has been touched on to some degree from those of you who have spoken already, who is not running for office among this potential pool of talented women? Who is being discouraged from running as political representative? Why is the pipeline so asymmetrically stunted for women? Because those of you who are here have overcome barriers, but we don't know as much about those who haven't made it here in the first place. And then the second aspect is, once you've made it past that first hurdle and you gain representation, you gain a seat in the legislature, shoulder to shoulder with the men, what are the criteria by which you are promoted into party leadership or into legislative national leadership positions? And is there a whole second level of barriers that women face? These two aspects, getting into politics and then succeeding once you're there and being recognized and being able to keep moving forward, may have elements that are similar, but they probably also are somewhat different. So I would like to hear from you, both in the remaining 7 minutes, but then also in reception and dinner to follow, your views about these questions. And in particular, maybe we could just start off by asking the senator from Mexico, the legislator and Senator Saldana, how did you manage to get the new rules through a male-dominated legislature to put women on a list? You know, how do we get to that stage in the first place? And then once they're there, how are the women going to not be tokens? How do you avoid being the resented minority or those who are deemed less qualified because you didn't get there by real competition, you got there because you were slotted in? So those are the questions I would like to get some answers to from those of you here. And again, thank you very much for this opportunity to be with you. I think this is a remarkable group, and I'm so glad that women are building these networks to make the world a better place. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we don't have many minutes left, but short comments or remarks on the panel, and then we have to have like 2 minutes to finish up, closing up the session. So who wants to be the first? Maybe Mexico would start.
I have to speak, although I'm not even recognized here. Because Pakistan is harshly and badly misunderstood by the West. In Pakistan, women have always had equal opportunities. If, as I said earlier, if their own families or their own circumstances hold them back from something, that is because we have a unique and difficult situation. But even from my mother's and grandmother's time, nobody has stopped a woman from doing any kind of job, either in politics or anything. Secondly, when we say that can Iceland be exported? Well, every country has its own situation, and we were invited, we were told to be participants. Now, when we came here, it is just between the Parliament of Iceland, for whom we are very thankful and we congratulate them for what they have achieved, and the WIP. We are just listeners, so just as listeners, we can just take home the message that Iceland has achieved this and this. But as we are not participants, we are just listeners. We cannot benefit from this experience, at least. Of course, what we have heard, we can use it in our country, but we cannot benefit from this. We have our own circumstances and we have to build our own self. because it's just like as if you're observers or just required as listeners.
Thank you. Then I would like to offer.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Well, all this meeting is have a lot of inspiration for all of us, for our works, and I'm very. I agree with the panel. All of them complement each other, and about the costs of or investment without women's participation. We know that there are a lot of numbers, statistics that agree with this, that we must participate in both areas, in the 4 areas, not only economies, not only making a better situation, social situation, education and health. Politics is a very good strategy because we make decisions, and in Mexico we have to make we have to go to the court, to the political court, the election court, to push the parties to obey the law. So that was the reason that in last 2 years, all the parties had to take off the men's, and a lot of women came, but we have to go to the court, and we have to have cases. And a lot of countries have 1, 2 case, popular case, but we have to achieve a lot of cases, and they obey that law. So right now, I told a few minutes before that in Mexico we approved a constitutional reform in the constitution, including the parity, and I think it also have to be with the political volunteers and the men that are in the parties, but we can change also the rules. And we have to be in it all together, all the parties, in a plural form, to push the things, not only one party. So we are learning about that, but we are very firm, and we are standing up to continue the secondary laws to specify in the parties, specify in the local municipalities, also the principle of parity. So we have a lot of work in this year. Next year we will run for elections, and I'm sure we will have 50-50.
Thank you. I'm so sorry, but we have to stop here. The buses are waiting. Some of us have to catch buses or planes elsewhere and so on. But hopefully some of us can keep on with this discussion during the reception tonight. But at last, I will hope that and I know we have all drawn some lessons from these experiences and examples that you have heard during our sessions and visits. And bear in mind that the world is stronger when we work together. I would now, before we leave the room, like to give a standing ovation to Silviana for her initiative in this arrangement. Would you like to make a closing remark?
Thank you all so much for that applause and appreciation. But really, I would want to thank others on all the effort and ideas and taking over the spirit of the summit that we had in November and bringing it to Iceland. Because I think during these 2 days, which to me passed like a few hours, what we've seen is something about Iceland where, at least I can say, I've been extremely impressed with. And this is to have met so many impressive women and men who, like the president yesterday, speaks about gender equality as an important factor and an asset, and really gives us confidence that men of any age group, because we have also our gender stereotypes sometimes, are our supporters, our allies in this on this journey for more gender equality. Or the Prime Minister who said that he's been abandoned as a baby when his mother went on strike, but he apparently is a very strong believer in gender equality. And to have met those self-confident and at the same time not making a big fuss about it, modest women who just are the way they are and do the job in a very self-confident way, to me this is truly impressive. So that all parties, all political parties got together, the women of all political parties, and said, listen, we want this to happen here, and that they managed to have really the highest political impact for this conference, that we're able to use this very important room which has never been opened for outsiders, and we are the first ones. This is a great honor, and thank you so much, all of you, for having done this for us fellow female parliamentarians. So, I mean, we don't expect anything less, actually, as of the world's leader in gender equality, so for others to follow with study trips, we can always console ourselves if not everything is as perfect as it has been here. But let me please thank the team that is behind all this on the organization, under the strong and tough auspices of Victis, who's here. You can see. Please come in. I know you're very proud of the chocolate from Iceland, but I tell you there's also good chocolate in Belgium. So please, this is for you. And for all your team, if you can hand this out, because I don't see everybody, also some Easter eggs and chocolate, and everyone hopefully tastes good for them, just to sweeten their time after this tough work, extra work, additional work. Thank you so much. Maybe also extra. I obviously would also like to thank the team which is behind the Women in Parliament, and this is Aline, who you've been all with on one way or the other, connected when she is asking you for flight details, trying to make your life as easy as possible while you're here. Areta, who is, if you, and please do, connect on Facebook, on Twitter, looking at the website, documenting everything. She's behind all that, Areta. Thank you so much. And Felix, who, well, most of the women want to adopt him as a son, because he's not only just a very, very kind colleague, but also a big brain behind all this work here. Thank all of you, and pass also the thanks on to you. And let me just finish by quoting Hannah Birner, who said, like, life is like a study trip, and what we studied here, maybe all of us can take a bit of Iceland with us, in a way to give us this extra energy, this additional motivation that we need sometimes for all the projects that we are in. Like, for example, our colleague from Jaroslava from the Czech Republic, who most of you, she gave you a CD where she wants to empower women. Or Anna Gabriela, who's been tough, supporting or going through the pressure of having to endure that pressure of a few seconds being the matter of winning or losing, and being able to show that women are as tough and as competitive as any man, and bringing that as a role model into politics. Or then Daina from Latvia, and also our friends from Albania, who are considering, after having listened to the success of the Women's Party, setting up maybe a women's party back in their countries. I mean, all these projects, I think, are very, very much related to the cause of the Women in Parliament's Global Forum, that we, across parties, across nationalities, are there to inspire each other, build these strong networks, to give us the strength to walk this additional mile to achieve what we would like to achieve, to have the world being a better place. Now, this is not the end of the conference. We still have a huge, huge highlight ahead of us. We've been hearing so many times references to Vigdis Finnbogadottir as the first ever female president in the world. And we have the great honor to have her with us this evening. So hopefully all of you can make it there. And I mean, it's not every day that you meet a true hero in your lifetime. And I think this evening is one of those moments. And also to learn about the initiative that we would like to briefly present to you on bringing more future leaders on track to politics. We've heard this afternoon how important it is, about initiative for the Girls' Day in October, which we would like to briefly introduce to you. And let me just finish with a quote by Michelle Bachelet, the again president of Chile, former leader of UN Women, who said, "If one woman is a leader, it changes her. If many women are leaders, it changes the world." Thank you.